I have some feedbacks from somewhere.
I hear a little bit. Hey, welcome to the God and Guns podcast YouTube tonight. Tonight we are honored to have Phillip Smith. Phillip is the National African American Gun Association president, and he's also the president of his local gun range, which is Bass Reeves Gun Club up in Atlanta, Georgia, and they got 500 members strong. And Phillip, glad you could come on with us tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me. Very excited to talk to you guys.
Yeah, so I actually got to talk to you the other day on the phone through an acquaintance that we both know, Antonio Jones, who is, let me go ahead and give Antonio a plug here. He is a 2011 the World Duck Champion Caller of the World. And in 2011, I actually got to meet Antonio a couple years ago, just by happenstance at a little grocery store eating lunch, duck hunting in Arkansas. And he just happened to walk in, and I talked to him for a few minutes. And then my wife had actually been talking to him through his Facebook the other day and was telling him about the podcast stuff. And I talked to Antonio, and Antonio started talking to me about Phillip. So Phillip, tell us about some of the stuff you're doing.
Yeah, sure. The National African American Gun Association, we've been around since 2015. I founded it in 2015 in February. We're about 18,000 plus members nationally. We have 28 chapters nationally right now. We've been growing pretty quickly at a good steady pace. The emphasis of the organization is on learning how to handle a gun properly, legally, going through the steps of learning how to get the right stance, the right hand positioning, learning the laws of that particular state in which you're in, and just really getting grounded with gun laws and understanding how to use the gun, and more importantly, how not to use a gun.
Outstanding. We were talking earlier, and you were talking about the training you guys do at your range and stuff. You got NRA instructors that come down and teach courses for you.
Correct. We've been blessed. I mean, Atlanta's kind of a good location. It's a large metropolitan area, so we've been blessed to have some really good instructors that have been able to kind of lead our groups in terms of how to really go about learning how to use a handgun. And every time we meet, which is once a month at a minimum, we'll go out to the range outside, and we'll go inside the range and go over the fundamentals.
Good deal. So we were talking a minute ago. Troy was showing off his Glock 19. You're a Glock fan.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, I am.
I'm a Glock fan as well. I carry a 19 and a 21.
Okay.
And Troy and I, we carry lots of different stuff.
Yeah, we carry a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I think the Glock's a good gun. It's just very dependable, reliable. I think the pricing on it is very attractive for most working folks. I mean, let's be honest. And it's, 4 or 5 years, the gun it keeps on ticking. So I always recommend it to everybody that's in the group and friends and colleagues that I meet.
Yeah, you get some of the accessories for it and holsters, and
Exactly.
The magazines are $20 or less a pop. So you go to buy some of the Smith & Wesson magazines are $50 or
exactly
things like that. So you can buy 2.5 Glock magazines to Smith & Wesson or
and it's a lifetime warranty. So that's pretty good too.
Yeah,
and they're practically indestructible too.
Absolutely.
We've put a bunch of rounds downrange through mine. I know, since I just picked mine up. I'm a big HK guy. I carry a VP9 probably 85% of the time.
Wow.
And I like that gun pretty good too. But now I got a Glock for a Go vest that I have, and one for a Go bag, and
yeah.
I just like carrying it 21. I shot it at Troy and I talked about it on our show last week. I got to take it up the range for the very first time, and that it's a handful of gun. It's a big gun. It's 45, and
Okay.
But man, it just shoots nice. It doesn't seem like there's hardly any recoil on it for a 45, and
they're a pretty gun. Yeah, it's a pretty gun for sure.
So Phillip, tell us about what got you into guns. When did you start? Was it a grandfather? Was it a family member? Was it a friend? Or
I get asked that a lot, and it's a great question. And it's so funny. I come from California. I was born and raised in California, a little town called Vallejo, Northern Cal. And my parents weren't anti-gun or pro-gun. It really wasn't talked about, particularly in California, where there's a very heavy, how can I say this delicately, being politically correct? It's kind of they sway you not to have a gun. I'll put it that way.
Uh-huh.
And in 2002, my wife and I decided we wanted to raise our kids in the South, so we came down to Atlanta area and start raising our kids. And as you know, you come to the South, it's a different world. Everyone has guns out here. They're passed down from father to son, grandfather to grandchildren, mother to daughter. It's just the whole family is just wrapped around guns in a very positive way. They go hunt together, they go shoot, competitions, three gun, IDPA, NRA, qualified stuff. So it's just a totally different environment. And when I got exposed to that, a lot of the illusions got pushed to the side, and the reality that, these are good folks. They're just like you and I, but they like to go shoot. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I guess for lack of a better word, I caught the bug. I went to shoot at a range with a couple of buddies I was working with, and they said, "Hey, why don't you come to the range?" And I was like, I don't know. And said, "Why don't you come?" So I went there grudgingly. And after I went there, first time I loved it. Next week I found myself back there again, and I really caught the bug. And I just been kind of attached to it ever since. And I just really enjoyed myself. And I said, if I can enjoy myself as much as I can with my nerdy old self, everyone else can come out and that I know in my community and have the same kind of fun, that they learn how to do it properly. And that's why the light bulb went on to start the organization. And just being very pragmatic, I said, I don't know a lot about it at that particular time, but if I do my research and put together an organization that kind of resonates with our community from a cultural standpoint, but at the same time, keeping the integrity of the gun industry and the gun laws and the training all in place, I think we could have something special. And I tried to have the organization not be political in nature, because we have, just to be quite frank, we have Black Republicans, Black Democrats, Black Tea Party members. We have law enforcement, ex-military. We just recently had an ex-federal prosecutor join our team. I was telling offline earlier. So we have a total mix of folks that come from different economic stratus, different areas of the country in terms of their interests and their background. So we're very diverse. We have white, Black, Latino, Asian, gay, straight, you name it, we have it. And we definitely try to make sure everyone is inclusive. Now, one thing we're not is that we're not monolithic in our mindset. We have different views. Some of us argue, some of us are grumpy. It's just very, very inclusive. And that's the good thing. You can come to us and join any chapter in the U.S. and feel welcomed. And that's the good thing about it. And when you go there, you're going to get good training. You're going to be founded with really good bylaws of the organization. There's a structure, there's a process. If you're a beginning shooter and you want to get to become a competitive shooter for 3-gun or IDPA, we'll help you get to those steps and help you get there. If you just want to say, "Hey, Phil, I just want to learn how to conceal carry," we'll help you do that as well. So whatever you want to do, you mold your own track record or your own customized training, we'll do that as well, just to help you get there. But it's a very inclusive and very, I think, positive environment and positive organization.
Cool. One of the things that probably has been an advantage to you, that most of the guys like Doug and I grew up, you came in it, you didn't have any bad habits. So when you came in, you didn't know anything about guns. And so if you learned it from an instructor the right way, like you're wanting to share with other people, I think that's a great thing, because a lot of people that grew up with guns. I mean, I don't remember, Doug and I have said this many times, I don't remember a time that I didn't know how to shoot, because my grandfather started teaching me as soon as I could walk, and I had a BB gun and a 22. But when I started concealed carrying, I had bad habits because I just was in that culture. I wasn't taught gun safety. I was taught gun safety. I wasn't taught gun safety and how to handle them when you're carrying them all the time, or how to handle them at a range and keeping your finger off the trigger. I mean, all those things that are habits you have to unlearn when you come from this side. Whereas if you get someone brand new that's jumping into learning about guns, they don't have any of those bad habits they have to break, so they can get a lot faster, especially if they have a teachable attitude. If they're willing to listen. And the trouble is with I've had in my classes that I teach, my concealed carry classes, and the classes I've been in, other defensive handgun classes and defensive carbine classes, other classes I've been in, is that people who grew up with guns are dangerous in those classes because they think they know how to do it.
Exactly.
And they can become very dangerous in those classes because they have a pride about what they know or what they think they know, and they have an arrogance about not willing to be retrained or listening to instructor. And so those are things that, you know, problems with the gun culture is that we have a lot of people out there that think they know what they're doing and too arrogant or too prideful to go and take a class and learn the proper way to do it. And so, and I see a lot with these concealed carry classes. You know, I've been carrying a gun for 40 years, and we had a guy in my class, and he's had a pistol. You know, I mean, he was almost 60, and he's had a pistol all these years, and he wasn't listening to my instruction. I kept saying he had a double action revolver. He kept wanting to cock the hammer, and he would pull the gun up and cock the hammer as he was bringing it down on target. And I said, "Stop doing that.
Yeah, you can't do that."
You got." And he ended up having a negligent discharge. It went off, hit the berm. If it hadn't hit the berm, I would have kicked him off the course because he wasn't following directions. And then after that, I said, "Table the gun. We're going to start over." And I had to start him up. But you know, that is a great thing that you're able to bring people in that don't know anything about guns and teach them right the first time. That's a great, I think it's a very great part of your program there.
Yeah, we've been blessed, as I said before, with good instructors. And one of the things, if you go to one of our sessions, one of the things you'll hear over and over is muscle memory, muscle management. How you learn initially really can help you or hinder you in that initial introduction to firearms. So we really take it very seriously with all of our classes. There's no playing around. We have instructors that are very, very focused on having a quality class session in terms of, you know, not only the rules of handgun all the way up to shooting. So we've been very blessed, and quite frankly, I think we've got a good program in place and some good folks in place to help us, you know, go down the road.
Awesome. So what are the what are you wanting to accomplish beyond the training aspect and beyond just getting other people more excited about the Second Amendment process or the ability to own guns? Do you have any kind of steps or of things that your goals for your group that you're wanting to?
I think you already touched upon it. The Second Amendment. A lot of folks in our community just really don't understand the Second Amendment. A lot of them don't even know what the Second Amendment is, and we have to really kind of educate them on what it is. You have that right to carry a gun, but to do so, there's some responsibilities in having the Second Amendment with each particular citizen. Have pride in the country. That's something we're very proud of as well. So it's an education process from beginning to end with our community. But the Second Amendment, and just knowing that, hey, you know, our forefathers have fought for us to get this right. And definitely to take advantage of it.
Well, I know that Martin Luther King had to fight back in the day to get gun rights because he couldn't have a gun, and the people in his entourage couldn't have guns to protect themselves with. And I wondered if that was something you guys talked about, the history of the fight, the battle to get those gun rights established, because a lot of the gun control laws were against minorities. They were against African Americans back in the 50s and 60s.
Exactly. In fact, we have, if you look at our website, we kind of go through the history of blacks and guns and how that interchanges and what's the relationship has been from a historical perspective. And quite honestly, the fight is still not over in terms of symbolism. We need to learn how to understand our rights, as I said before, but more importantly, learn that we have to sometimes take a more proactive stance in terms of learning about the laws and the history that as it applies to our community, because typically we had to go through the black codes initially back in, you know, looking at history back in the day. And the black code simply said if you saw an African American or a slave at that particular time with a gun or a knife or anything deemed quote unquote a weapon, they could be shot and no questions would be asked. So the road for us to go from there to where we are now has been kind of a little bit different from other ethnic groups in the U.S. And we try to educate our community on what that road has looked like and what you need to do and understand when you have that Second Amendment right, that you have, you know, people have died for you to get to this point. So don't take it lightly, take it serious. Understand as an American citizen, it's one of the things that you really should fight for, regardless of any political views that you might have with somebody else. If the one thing that we can agree upon is the Second Amendment, then that's a good place to start. We have a saying in our organization: we can agree to disagree, but let's not disconnect, meaning that you might have your view on some other stuff and I might have my view, but we have to agree. on the Second Amendment, because without that, you or I wouldn't be here having this conversation.
Right. Yeah, I know that a lot of the gun laws. I mean, even like I think in North Carolina, you still have to get the approval of the local sheriff or law enforcement officer to verify your good character. And so it's a very subjective thing. That was the way they went about it back in the 50s and 60s to keep people from being able to get concealed carry licenses or be able to prohibit them from getting guns in general, was that they would put someone in charge who decided whether you were a good enough citizen or you were a good enough character to have that. The Second Amendment doesn't give anyone the right to do that. They don't have the right to prohibit you from owning a gun. And so just to get people to understand that that's not it's not a license. Oh, I guess they call it a license, but the Second Amendment is our concealed carry license as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that's been put on top of that is just more encroachment upon our rights. But the second protects the first.
A living document for us, for the most part, it's a living document that we that has bled. People have bled for us to get to this point and have that Second Amendment. So we have to take it seriously and understand how it got to this point. So it's very, very important.
I've always, Troy and I have talked about this before. What would people think that want to exercise their right to freedom of speech or freedom of religion to go to a church of their choice? If you had to go down to the courthouse and get a permit anytime you want to visit a different church or go someplace else or say the things that you want to say, if you had to get a license or permit for that, they'd be outraged. So,
well, they're trying to do that.
Yeah,
they have free speech areas now.
Well, true.
You're right.
But, why should the Second Amendment be any different than any of the others, where you have to go through all these hoops to try to exercise your constitutional right?
It's a constant fight. It's a constant fight for all of us, that we have to be diligent and watch what's going on from a legal perspective, because they're trying. There's some people. I don't want to try to demonize anybody, because I'm from the school of thought that we're all in this together. But some people, they have a different agenda. But they are trying to pass laws that are I think, that are trying to chip away at the Second Amendment. And I don't think we should stand for that at all.
I think the biggest problem that we have, and it's been really incited in the last few years, is that people will denigrate someone, say that, well, they're just a stupid hick, or they're just whatever. They try to isolate you and call you a name, and then you don't matter. And once you don't matter, they don't have to listen to you. They don't have a dialogue with you. Exactly. I think what you said is very important, that we respect one another and we have discussions, and we don't just call someone a name and quit talking to them.
Exactly.
Like they have no value. In the Bible, it said that, we're all created in God's image. And so that we shouldn't be calling each other names because we're insulting the image of God. Our brother and sister here on this planet were created in the image of God. And
exactly.
So we respect them. We show them honor and respect, but we can have arguments. We disagree. But at the end of the day, let's respect and love one another enough to honor them, to listen to them, and have a debate with facts and not with a bunch of emotion. And
exactly. Exactly. I think as a Christian, and I consider myself a Christian, it's really important that when you have those heated discussions, and sometimes I'll be honest, some of the most heated discussions I've had are inside my own community with people that have a totally different view of African Americans with guns. And you know how your emotions get when you have that conversation. They're saying you're this and you're trying to get your point across. I always look back and say, what would Jesus do? And kind of take a step back and, inhale, exhale, and then continue the conversation. Because, at the end of the day, this person is my brother or sister. They just have a different experience or a different value that they're trying to, tell me about. That's where it comes. You have to really respect your fellow man. And that, not to sound too corny, but that's just a fact, I think.
I agree with you 100%. I think based on where you're raised and how you were raised, plays a big factor on how you look at guns. Like Troy and I have been around guns all of our lives. Our grandparents had guns, and our dads, and we were out running the woods at 10, 11 years old with our own shotgun, with no parent supervision, going out squirrel hunting, rabbit hunting, whatever. Yeah. We were raised around them.
Right.
I have a 27-year-old son and 3 22-year-old girls now. that are triplets, and they were raised around my guns. And I took them out shooting. They knew what they were. They weren't inquisitive. I didn't hide them from them.
Yeah.
Stereotypically, you live in an inner city or you live in a big city. You got a gun. You do have a gun, and it stays in the sock drawer, and it's buried in Dad's drawer somewhere down in the very bottom. And you never take it out. You never clean it. And once in a while, you might get a glimpse of it. Kids are inquisitive about that stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's our responsibility to take these kids out. There's nothing I like better than taking a new shooter that does not go to the range, never shot a gun, and has these preconceived notions that guns are bad, and you take them to the range and let them shoot, and they're just like you were saying a while ago. After your first experience, you're like, hey, this is fun.
Exactly. Kind of the light bulb goes on. You realize that a lot of the stuff you heard previously just isn't true. And I know for me and in my community that I'm focused upon, because a lot of us have been, how can I say, socialized into thinking that guns are one way.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say, hey, it's not that way, why don't you come over here and at least try? You break down those images of negativity and say, hey, this is a positive experience. And that's when the fun happens.
Yeah, I tell you, Troy and I last year, was it last? Yeah, last year at NRA up in Louisville,
Yeah.
we were up there, and we had the opportunity to sit down with a lady that just happened to walk by our table. She was actually working the NRA back in the food area.
Right.
She made a comment about, she couldn't believe that all these people brought their kids to the NRA and promoting guns and stuff.
Right.
And she sat down. She wound up sitting down at the table with us, and she had some very bad experiences with family members and guns, and she just had the total wrong notion about what that's all about. Guns are all about, what the Second Amendment's about, what the NRA is about. And I don't know, Troy, how long did she sit and talk with us? Hour and a half?
Yeah, probably. I mean, and then there was the God aspect. Why would why you Christians shouldn't want guns? They're
Exactly.
not supposed to want guns. And I'm like, well, it's a different culture. I said, I understand your experience is different than what we grew up with.
Right.
And I understand that you have a painful experience relationship to a gun, but that doesn't mean that everyone has that same experience. And we don't want that. We want you to have a good experience, and we want you to understand our perspective and where we come from. And we understood her perspective, and we had prayer with her because she had a family member that was doing some jail time for some things relating to guns, and just the fear she had of her children and grandchildren touching a gun. I'm like, well, you need to get trained or get them trained as well to be safe around them. So we had a really good conversation.
We did.
Yeah, I think when you can educate somebody, that is probably one of the best things that can happen to you, because you understand that you're breaking through some barriers, and that's a good thing.
Right. So what activities you got lined up for this year? You have a regular monthly meeting, and what else do you have?
We have our regular monthly meetings. We're having our management team meeting coming up next month. That's going to be pretty good, and that's all the folks that are in the management level position. We have our quarterly conference call with all our chapter presidents, and that's coming up as well. And it's just really keeping the ball going down the road to make sure that everyone's on board, doing the right things at the right time. And in some cases, you have to walk away from some things that are planned. You can't do everything at the same time, particularly for a young organization, because for the most part, I consider our organization a startup. We've just starting to get the ball rolling. We're just starting to have membership dues. We're just starting to get some plans in place for scholarship funds. So the traction is really starting to go now. So we're just trying to be diligent about that.
Okay. So if they want to know more information, or listeners want to know more information about how they can get in touch with you, what social media links and
we're on Twitter, Instagram. Our website is www.naaga.co. And I'm Phillip Smith, and love to chat with you. Whoever's out there is interested. And as I said before, everyone's invited. Please join and tell all your friends about us.
Great. Now, you all got anything special lined up for the NRA? Going to be there in Atlanta this?
Yeah, we're going to be there. Try to see as much as I can and enjoy the process and the people that I'm going to be meeting. I have some meetings set up, so it's going to be a good time for all.
Have you been to an NRA yet, Phillip?
No, I have not. Never been before.
Man, it's it's fun.
A lot of fun.
Okay.
Well, we'll see you there. We'll get Doug will get you a text when we get there, and we'll try to meet up and meet you, shake your hand.
All
So
right.
that'd be great.
That's good. Look forward to meeting you guys.
Cool. Anything else before we close out tonight?
No, just thanks for having me on, and I appreciate the time.
Hey, Phillip, we appreciate you having you on tonight, and appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. Anything else, Doug?
Man, Phil, it's good actually getting put a face with the name and talking to you on the phone now.
Okay.
And we'll yeah, I mean, you're close to me now. You're up in Atlanta, and I'm a member of Gun Club in Macon. And anytime you want to,
we're really close.
Huh?
I live in McDonough, so we're pretty close.
Oh, well, you're right there. So, anytime you want to get together to shoot, you just let me know. You got my number now, and I'll come to your range. You come to my range, and we'll bust out the toys and have a good time with them.
That sounds like a plan.
All right, Phil,
Thank you.
talking to you. Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you as well. Thank you.